I read the Bible and it says that his hair was like lamb wool, and his feet was like brass burnt in the oven. So lamb wool remind me of dreads, and anything burnt in the oven is going to automatically come out black. So, I was studying all this, and I was trying to get to the root, who was Jesus. Then I came across this other paper called the Ryland Papers. Ryland is a museum in Berlin, but the owner of the museum was Ryland. But the paper's original name was called the Papyrus Papers. Papyrus Papers are the original transcripts that the New Testament was written on. And the papyrus only grows in Egypt. And I read that Jesus fled to Egypt, and when he got to Egypt, he was able to hide. How can you hide if you're European? If he's the depiction that Leonardo da Vinci gave us, or Michelangelo in the Sistine Chapel. When he painted the Sistine Chapel for the Vatican in Rome, he painted Jesus as a European. So that doesn't correlate. So I said, if all this was going on and they were complicit in this, I said, what else was they complicit in? Then I get into Martin Luther King. I see you got a picture of Martin Luther King, I think.
Right
so Martin Luther King, right? I love Martin Luther King. I grew up on Martin Luther King. But then I think about all the other stuff that happened. And then I say, why is there a Martin Luther King in every hood? Why is Martin Luther King sitting on a statue like this in Washington, D.C., everybody else on horses and got their hand up? I said, why do they talk so glorious about Martin Luther King in the history books? Then I thought about it. And I thought about my research and my studies. I said, they killed him. The backstory of Martin Luther King is that a white man killed him. That is white supremacy. And then I said, okay, well, that's a coincidence. I said, let me study Black Wall Street. So I studied Tulsa, Oklahoma. I studied how rich and how prosperous those brothers and sisters was. And I said, they keep telling me about Tulsa, Oklahoma. So I'm already suspicious about Martin Luther King. So I'm saying, why do they keep telling me about Tulsa? They killed 600 black folks. That's what white supremacy is, bro. They will make you think that they praising you, but when you get into the backstory, your mind is a hell of a thing, brother. Your mind will pick that up. Like, I better stay in check. I better not do what Malcolm X do, because I don't want to end up with Martin Luther King did. I want to end up dead. We can't start no Black Wall Street. You see what the angry mob did what they did in Tulsa. This is white supremacy. This is where we got to get smart at. We got to understand the tricks of the enemy. We got to understand that we are the original people. We are the original kings. You know what I'm saying? King Solomon was a black man.
Good people, what's up, what's good, y'all? I'm blessed to be your host, Caleb Smith. Today's guest, I know you guys have probably seen him before, fan favorite, OG, man, always giving out great game. And bro, this conversation is needed because it's a lot of fellas messing up out here. Pimpin Ken, how you feeling, brother?
With my hands?
Yes, sir.
I thought that'd be appropriate, considering the circumstances.
Indeed. Hey, got to joke with it, man.
Yeah.
Brother, you had a great conversation, Soft White Underbelly.
Right.
I was just watching that. And man, you gave out a lot of game. And
Right.
one line in particular, I love, you can take all my money, just let me keep my game.
Absolutely.
If you can, break that down for us, OG.
Well, game can be relative, right? Perception is reality. So a lot of people perceive different things in different ways, right? But game is really strategy. It's machination, it's clandestine. So if you can see it, it's really not game. Take, for example, the Iraq War. That they allegedly, Colin Powell said they had weapons of mass destruction. So that was the reason for America to go and invade Iraq. However, we found out later that there was never no war, no weapons of mass destruction. but that's the game. They fed the American people this lie. They pumped us up and they made us believe that, we was all in danger. And they're trying to do the same thing with Brother Ibrahim Toure in Burkina Faso, telling us that he's a terrorist. That's game. But a lot of people can't peep it, right? They say real game, recognize game. So somebody like you and I would instantly recognize that, say, oh, this is game. They finna try to take this brother minerals. They try to invade Saddam Hussein for his oil. So that's what I'm saying. Give me my wisdom, my knowledge, my strategy, my ability to be a chess player, a human chess player, as my book is called, The Art of Human Chess. And I don't need the money, because with strategy and with machinations and with very clandestine moves, I can, pretty much mac myself or finesse myself out of any situation I'm in, because that's game. It's just strategy. Really, it's basically strategy. It's out finessing the fox, out finessing your opponent. Because everybody run game. It's just different levels of game, right? My mama used to say, don't lie, you're going to go to hell, and, that's deceptive. But I said, Mama, everybody lie. So if I don't learn about deception, then how can I peep game and know when somebody trying to deceive me? So don't take that away from me. Don't take my ability to discern. Don't take my ability to recognize when danger is about to befall me. Where there's the least appearance of evil, you got to expect the greatest amount of danger. Whoever can do you good can also do you harm. But if you can peep it, you can push it up off you.
Okay. Discernment, that's a very important word because,
Absolutely.
as you've seen, OG, we have people like Shannon Sharp, right?
Mm-hmm.
Hall of Famer, arguably one of the greatest tight ends ever. He earns more post his career doing sports, TV, all of that stuff. He had $100 million deal, allegedly, on the table. And seeing that now he lost his job at ESPN, where he was getting paid $10 million per year. All he had to do was show up 2 days a week, nightcap, all of these things. Everything was doing amazing. And now it's all changed overnight off of who he was sleeping with. Just from seeing that situation as young Black men, what can we learn from that?
Well, I would talk to Shannon Sharp like he was my son. I say, son, no offense saying it. I say, son, think 3 times, act once. Think 3 times, act once. He have to, we have to understand that when we let a temporary situation cause a permanent problem, that's a lack of emotional quotient. You got IQ, you got EQ. EQ is emotional quotient. Sometimes we let our emotional supersede our IQ, our intellectual quotient. We let our intelligence supersede, we let our emotion supersede our intelligence. And that's called impulse. In the game, I always say, don't let your little head beat your big head, because your little man is going to get you in trouble all the time, because it's based on pleasure, and it's one of the senses. We got 5 senses. That's, stimulation of sex is a very heavy stimuli. It really, it's really serious. So when you allow your little head to beat your bigger head, then you get yourself caught up in all kind of situations. So I think in the case of Shannon, I would tell Shannon, like, look, man, first of all, you got to do deductive logic. You got to do logical deduction. So in logical deduction, you got to look at all the variables. Okay, this is a younger woman. Do she really love me? She's very beautiful. I'm not, the most youngest and handsomest guy in the world. Not saying he's not handsome, but he's not young and handsome. You see what I'm saying? He might be an older handsome man, but he's not young and handsome. So she got a lot of prospects. She got a lot of opportunity. So I first would, logically deduct that. I would say, okay, this don't make sense. Secondly, anytime somebody tell you they love you, that's a red flag anyway, because people start at your feet and then they end up at your throat. So you got to understand, the hook. You got to know when the play is being put down, and me being a seasoned veteran, I would have seen the play from the beginning, I would have switched the game around. I would have put reverse psychology on her. You know what I'm saying? She would have been, I'd have been suing her for $40 million, you know, if she would have been in my mix, because I would have peeped the game instantly. You know, so you got to do logical deduction. You got to make sure that the situation makes sense. See, I always talk about reasoning, right? Reasoning is a very important faculty in the human mind, and God gave it to us for a reason. He gave us reasoning for a reason, because if you look at an ox, right? An ox is the most strongest animal in the kingdom, right? In the animal kingdom. He can, you know, he's strong. But if a hunter get to that ox and point that gun at that ox, and he's pointing it, the ox don't got enough reason, enough sense to know that he about to be some oxtails. You understand what I'm saying? A lion would go into a cage where there's a steak on a table or something. You place a steak on the table. He'd go in that cage because he don't have reasoning faculties. But we have the ability to reason and think. As a man thinketh, so is he. You know, if the Honorable Noble Drew Ali said, if I can get my people to think, they'll save themselves. The reason why African Americans are in the condition we in, and the reason why so many brothers like Puffy and Shannon Sharp and Bill Cosby and R. Kelly are falling, because they're not thinking. If they just think about who they are and do a self-assessment and get themselves a checkup from the neck up, they say, I'm famous. I'm a target. You know, everybody out to get me. Don't be paranoid, but be intelligent. And I think that that's the problem. A lot of these brothers, man, they don't think. You know, I mean, like Brother T.D. Jakes going to P. Diddy party. You know, I used to go to his church. That was not a good thing to do if you're a man of God. You know, you don't want to go and be around sinners, because Goldie got a saying, if you show me what you caught, I'll show you what you show me what you caught, I'll show you what bait you use, and I'll also show you what rod you use. You know, so you can't be in a certain pond fishing and catching certain things and don't expect for people to know that it's catfish, that it's perch, that it's whitey, that it's a whale, that it's a shark. So we got to be very careful, you know, and a whole bunch of, you know, I mean, we could go, Brother Jamal Bryant, I listened to his speech. He said that, you know, he got caught doing something with his wife. We got to be careful. You know what I'm saying? We got to be careful as leaders. You know, then we can go on and on and on of our leaders falling from grace. You know, once you become a black leader, you become instant a target, because they want to demonize, discredit, and destroy all black power. Because white power is serious. White supremacy is a serious thing. When they say white supremacy, they mean that they are superior over us. And they'll build us up. You know, Bill Cosby had his own network, and then they'll pull the rug from up us. P. Diddy was the golden child of hip hop. They pulled the rug up on him. R. Kelly was the golden child of R&B. They pulled the rug up on him. You know, the Black Panthers, Martin Luther King, they just released papers on him saying that, you know, he was sleeping with other women, and particularly white women. You know, this is what they do. So you knowing what they do, you got to be strategic. You got to be careful. If somebody get on the phone, they call me, they say anything about drugs, I'm hanging up. They say anything about any kind of crime, I'm hanging up, because I got to assume that somebody's out to get me. If a woman coming to me and she tell me she love me, she got to prove it. You know, you got to test a woman. I used to do a thing when I was in the gang. I'd get a suitcase and I had like 100 bands in it. You know what I mean? I show it to a female, and then I get a duplicate suitcase. And then I would count the money, and I tell her to go to the bathroom, give me some tissue. I switch the suitcase, and I put the other suitcase. I say, hey, I need you to take this by your house and keep it for a couple of weeks. Fortunately for me, no one never ran off. But that just let me know that this woman was really down with me. She had to prove her loyalty to me. And I did this on numerous occasions. And women that had been with me, they'll tell you, Ken, really telling the truth, he did that. You know, certain things I'll leave $500 in my car. And I had one of my partners riding with me. I leave it there intentionally just to see if this nigga gonna steal this money. You know, one brother, you know, I don't want to say his name, but he didn't pass the test. You know what I'm saying? And, you know, I just looked at him, but it let me know that I got to cut him off. So, you know, you got to have some type of systems in play to make sure that don't no woman get up under you under falsehood. Because one of the greatest challenge of man has always been a woman. The Bible started off with the fall of man. What is he falling from? He's falling from grace. Why? He said, the woman you gave me deceived me. So really, if you put it in the context in a symbolic way, it's really the mind. So the mind, the man is Adam. Adam means man. Man is a spirit. So Adam is the spirit, but the serpent is your conscience. Hey, man, go smoke some weed. Hey, man, do this. Hey, do that, right? So the serpent gets into what? Your subconscious mind. They say the subconscious mind is the feminine mind of men and women. So once you get into the conscious and the conscious fall, and if man allow his subconscious fall, then the man, Adam, gonna fall too. And that's what it's called the fall of man, because it was a mental fall. So mentally, man have to be sharp, because God gave woman to us as a challenge. The woman make you stronger. Women are more intelligent than men. A lot of men that listen to the show ain't gonna like that. I say it for a reason, because women mature faster than men. Elijah Muhammad said, and Malcolm X said it as well, that if you're gonna be with a woman, you got to be 7 years her senior. She got to have something to look up, or you got to be a highly intelligent, great earner for a woman to respect you. Otherwise, a woman gonna talk to you like you're a dog. And that's just one side of it. The other side of it is the vagina. Goldie got a favorite saying, take the vagina off the pedestal. Because when the vagina's in play, a man can't think rationally, because the vagina is more power than man's thinking, because it's a great feeling, and don't let her know what she's doing. You're in super danger. So we have to understand that when you're dealing with a woman, Shannon Sharp, Puffy, or whoever, you got to make sure that you're dealing with that woman on equal footing. That's why the Bible said be equally yoked. It's not talking about equally yoked and how most people, we're talking about mentally equally yoked. You got to be, when you can get in a woman's head, brother, you could touch her, she'll calm all over herself. If you can get in her head, the key is to stimulate a woman's brain, to get in a woman's mind and make a woman like you from a mental perspective. The physical is not what brothers think it is. Man, I laid pipe. Okay, dude, you laid pipe, but a baby come out of the same hole that you laid pipe on. How much pipe you think you really laying if she can put an 8-pound baby up out of her vagina? So it ain't even about that. It's about this. Most men that are successful in relationships have a close mental relationship with their woman. And then once you get a woman mentally, you can get her to do anything physically. And, I think a lot of these guys, they lead with their penis, and I'm sure Shannon Sharp thought he was a cock master. I bet he thought he can bang the walls up out to the young lady. He thought he was doing something. But that ain't nothing to them, man. When they playing and they finessing, they making moves, they already know they're gonna take you. It's a chess game. They're gonna make all kind of noise and say all kind of stuff, make you feel like He-Man and Superman, and you're gonna feel like you really doing something, and then they're gonna rock you to sleep. As soon as you get caught slipping, what I'm saying? Especially in today, they're gonna put that camera on you when you sleep. They're gonna do, I know you've seen this move. What's the move? This the move right here. Hey, when they do that, hey, it's on and popping. You know what I'm saying? So they got you. So you got to be careful. And, I think that for young men, out there, it's how they don't get caught up like Shannon Sharp, is that, man, deal with a woman from a mental perspective. You know what I'm saying? I mean, let your mind, in the game, in the old game, I used to be in the pimp game, we said, we don't pimp for money, we pimp for control. We want to control the environment. And that's the key to the game, is controlling the environment. That means control over your penis, control over your money, control over your feelings, control over love. Because love like a 4-letter word, like fucking shit. So we say, fuck that shit. You know what I'm saying? I mean, but a lot of people, they don't look at it like that. They fall in love and they don't know it's a thin line between love. How many what is the number one causes of divorce?
Finances.
Marriage.
Yeah.
That's the number one cause.
That's a good
marriage.
one.
You know what I'm saying?
Hey, you got to get married to get divorced.
You go get a divorce. So,
That's right.
that's what, one got to really make sure that before you marry a woman that you got it on lock and that, she's really in your corner, And I think that a lot of successful men don't know that anytime you get a younger woman that's extremely younger than you, she's only there for the wealth and for the opportunity. She's not, it's not, logically, it's possible, but I'm more into women dating older men that are broke. If a woman date an older man that's broke, then I can believe it. Just like when people do stuff to me and they say, "Man, Ken, I ain't mean to do that." I said, "Nigga, go get hit by a semi truck and tell me you didn't mean to do that, and I can believe you." People know exactly what they're doing. You know what I'm saying? People intentional.
Come on, OG. Hey, you giving out some great game already. Hearing that, I think about back to that Shannon Sharp thing is that girl was an OnlyFans model. And she received so much money that she retired from OnlyFans. So that was a heck of a come up. So from seeing that, hearing you say that we went from the track
I
to
bet
the
you.
Apple
I
Mac.
bet you. I'm not trying to. I bet she got a player somewhere. Some dude
See,
that's
I didn't even
coaching
think
her.
of. Come on now,
She couldn't have did that herself.
talk about.
I've been in the game all my life. I know when somebody being coached. Somebody is putting some serious game down. They told her exactly what to do. They told her exactly how to play it. She played it. In the game, we say that's a good bitch. You know what I'm saying? She's an in-pocket bitch. That's what we would call her in the streets. An in-pocket bitch, a bitch that really follows some instructions. Because the bigger the structure, the bigger the production. The average woman, when they moving in that capacity and they come from that lifestyle, they got some game behind them. I guarantee you, whoever was the game behind them, I bet you they riding in a Maserati right now or in a brand new Rolls, saying, good job.
Hey, there y'all have it, y'all. So from the track to the Apple Mac, how has I would say the overall game changed, man, from seeing now that everything is just all digital, opposed to being outside. And, to your point, now you got OnlyFans models that's everywhere. And they so happen to always be around all the athletes, end up being the baby mamas, all of that. How has the game overall changed to you?
Well, I think the game changed, many, many years ago. One of my partners, we was in a specific city, I don't want to say it, and we ended up getting on Backpage. Then we got on Earrolls and we tried, I don't know what the other one was. I know that Feds shut it down, but it was another one. But we tried all that stuff, man, and, it was a rude awakening. But the reason why I didn't like it, because I'm looking at how the game was being put down. So when you get a broad, right, in the game, off the blade, off the track, right, you take her and, you call her P and you say, look here, man, I got the broad, you could break the plate. She don't eat there no more. She done chose up. That was the traditional way of serving somebody. And the women couldn't go out there if they didn't have no representation because the other women would chase them out or the P's would chase them off the track. So once the internet came into the play, we went from the track to the Apple Mac, you know what I'm saying? And everything went on the computer. Things changed. Now women would get with guys, they'd get the game, and then they'd run off and they'd go to the hotel down the street or they go to a hotel over here. And now they booking their own calls. They on Backpage, they on Euros, they booking their calls, they got fake pages up. They ain't really them, but it's still a pretty women. And the tricks is still calling in and they booking the calls, either in call or out call. So now they get money like never before, but they don't have to share it with a P. So what that did was it changed the game so tremendous. Guys like me who was stumped down, it was hard for us to really come up because now these bras were getting these little dudes from the hood that, wanted to smoke some weed, drink some syrup, and pop some pills. And they can lay in the room, chill, and relax and still manage their money. They had to give all their money to a so-called P. So that's how the game got twisted. So now dudes start making deals, you know what I mean? Now they like, hey man, look, you know what I'm saying? I got a deal for you know what I'm saying? If you do this, that, and the other, you know what I'm saying? You give me half the money, then I'll be down with you, or we can get money together, or I roll with you, baby. So the women start making deals and dudes start getting half of the money. Now, when a woman get with a real P, she gonna like, why I'm gonna give you all my money? So-and-so let me give him half the money. And that's how the game had got so twisted, right? And now a lot of these guys out here they out here, they got to have some real game. And they got to really be in the broad's brain. They got to wrap their head around her brain in order to really get the dough now. So I think it kind of just elevated, it changes, just like, people talking about, oh my God, AI taking over. You know what I'm saying? We was, oh my God. The internet is taking over the pimping. We was crying. Don't think they was the only one crying. We was crying too. Talking about, oh man, the pimping is over with. You know what I'm saying? And, how I'm going to eat now? Same old scenario. But it's just technology and evolution. Darwin talked about evolution. Everything evolves. So you're not going to have, the same circumstances in 2025 that you had in 1995, because circumstances changes. You got the, women. I didn't have women, DM me like, hey, what's up? You know what I mean? Blah, blah, blah. You in the game with the woo? And I DM back, no, ain't nothing up. You know what I'm saying? But airplanes and and get money, right? So I had to kick it back to them. Then I had guys who said girls was hoeing on IG. They was hoeing on Facebook. So it's all type of new shit, that didn't exist. But a guy like me, I got to be able to pivot, right? So I get into the business world, and I figure out how can I maintain my existence? How can I continue to get money without reverting back to that lifestyle? So, some people gonna figure it out. Some people gonna drown in it.
Man, come on now. In DC, you've broken down a great breakdown of how politicians get with the women and then find out it's a Black man behind it. Right now in DC, of course, during this crazy presidency, do you think that some of the laws that we've seen in the past towards pimping has been a strategy, I would say, of trying to get y'all out of the paint once finding out that all the money that they've been paying towards these women has been going towards
Well,
Black
you
men?
would have to be connected to the lifestyle to understand what I'm saying. Yeah. Having 16 bras in Washington, D.C. at one time, all of them on the track giving me all this money, was one thing. But to hear the stories of these congressmen and sitting there in the room, in the hotel room, and she said, I just dated him. I just dated him. I just dated him. I just dated him. It makes sense to me that the Congress and the legislators would be harsh on the pimping because a lot of them can't understand how can this pretty, blonde, blue-eyed white woman go home or go to a hotel and give up money to an African-American man that got braids and smoking weed all day and speak Ebonics. Can't put two sentences together. To them, that's disturbing. So after a while, they come together. You find out in the Epstein case that not only Trump was there, but Clinton was there and all these so-called people we see on TV all the time, they all was there. So if they all there and it's supposed to be some pedophile type stuff, imagine what they doing on the tricking level. They probably tricking wholesale. And so just like they congregate for that, they're congregating and they're talking about, look, man, Becky, yeah, I dated Becky too. She's so beautiful. I don't know, she had this little Black guy. He just misusing her, he's abusing her. I want to do something about it. Well, what you want to do? Let's come up with this law called human trafficking. And ironically, they are the original human traffickers.
Come on
They
now.
brought us over here, for 250 years. They original slave traders. Human trafficking, talking about bringing people from another land and exploiting them, they did it to us. So now they're charging so-called Black men with the same charge that they were the ones that were guilty of. Their foreparents were the original human traffickers. They were the ones that was putting our parents over. They even had slave camps. They had men whose job was, they call them baby makers. You know what I'm saying? They were studs. That's where the word studs come from. They were like men that do nothing. They were built men with strong genes, and they would get strong women with strong genes, and they would make them have sex, and they would create babies. That's 10 times worse than the human trafficking. They talk about a man getting a little money, which is little money, $1,000 ain't no money, from a female because she like him. You was dealing with people that didn't like you, that people that didn't even want to be here. And you not only enslaved them, but you beat them with whoops and bull whips, and you beat them with stitcher cords and all kind of objects, switches and stuff like that. And you say, that they human traffickers. Well, then if that's the case, y'all need to make the law retroactive and charge all of y'all selves that has benefited, all of y'all who benefit from the human trafficking that your foreparents did. So black people ain't the real human traffickers. Anybody that know the pimp game know these women gonna be hoes no matter what. They don't need no pimp to hoe. The pimp just give them direction to hit the next intersection, keep them on the chase for a big face. That's all he doing. He giving them some game on how to get the money. He teaching them motivation and inspiration, but the women gonna do it regardless. But the ideal that black men are just predators and they chasing these women and they putting these women out here indiscriminately against their will, that's some BS. I can tell you that from personal experience. Now, what the law initially said on 2020 and Dateline and all that stuff that they were saying, they said that it was foreigners bringing people over from Mexico and from Philippines, and they were trafficking these people. It was an international law. All of a sudden, it became domestic. And yes, they were complicit. The whole Hollywood was complicit. You think about Pimps Up, Hoes Down, American Pimp. You think about all these pimp movies, T.I., pimping all over, Ludacris pimping all over the world, T.I., Pimp Squad, Clear, 50 Cent, P.I.M.P., 8-Ball, You Gotta Be Hard, Take a Pimp Hard from the Start. You look at all the pimp songs that was preluded the actual game, the law. It was all the setup. It was all the setup. They set it up beautiful. They made pimping the biggest thing on earth. They made Pimpin Ken big. They made Bishop Don Juan big. Snoop Dogg became a big pimp advocate. And then all of a sudden, they came with the laws. They did the same thing with the drug game. They made Scarface big. They made Nina Brown big. Hollywood plastered all over the world. And then they came with the drug laws. Everybody wanted to be Scarface. Everybody wanted to be Pimpin Ken. Everybody wanted to be Don Juan. But the aftermath is everybody got incarcerated. That's why I denounced Pimps Up, Hoes Down, American Pimp, because it sent a lot of black men to jail. It was something that was almost like a machination or form of engineering that allowed us to think that pimping was cool. And in the midst of us getting all happy about it, just like we was wearing gold chains and driving Mercedes-Benz and had the big phones and the phones in our car and had rims on our car, we thought that was cool. Then all of a sudden, everybody started getting indicted. And to this day, they still getting indicted, and they giving them more time for the drugs in the hood than the drugs in the suburbs. Tell me the difference between an ounce of powder and an ounce of crack. Only difference is baking soda. There was a brother in New York, he challenged the crack laws. And what he did was he had a chemist come in there, and the chemist actually put the baking soda in the powder in front of the jury and showed the jury, like, look, there's nothing chemical about this. This is, you put baking soda in there with some water, you boil it to a certain thing, and it just makes the cocaine hard. Crack is still cocaine. So he had won the case, but somehow you can't find that case nowhere in the law books, because they know that if everybody had the money to hire a chemist and can go through the full measure of a court trial, that all those guys would have to be released from prison. But what happens is they offer them so much time, just like Puffy. Puffy, I don't know if you've seen the interview I did with Boss Talk. I said, Puffy is not gonna go to jail for human trafficking. I said, because he's not a sex trafficker, he's a trick trafficker. I said, Puffy was a trick. I said, they can't charge him with pimping. And he beat both of the charges. And I put that on my Instagram at realpimpken_. They can go see it. I said, Puffy is not going to jail for human trafficking or for sex trafficking, because I understood the game. But what they do is they give you sex trafficking, they give you human trafficking, they give you baby oil, they give you so many charges that the jury have to find you guilty on something. Because it looked like, it's so many charges psychologically, it looked like you're being unbiased or you're being, for Puffy. You got to charge him with something. And the charges that they charged him, it still didn't merit him going to penitentiary. And then you also knew that you look at the fact that Puffy never received a bail. Yeah. Man, you got people, I ain't gonna say their name, but somebody killed somebody in Texas, a famous person. They free. They out on bail. This man ain't killed the ant. He ain't stepped on the ant. You know what I'm saying? He ain't did nothing. He ain't killed nobody. And he's still in jail. That's a message to all black men that we're going to destroy y'all. Our brother Kwanzaa Kajufi talk about the conspiracy to destroy young black men. Dr. Naeem Akbar talk about the psychological image and change of slavery. Dr. Francis Cress Wellesley talk about the ISIS paper, the fear of the black man penis. That's what they fear of. Demographers say that from a populated standpoint, Europeans are dwindling. They're not making enough children. So it's a concerted effort, and the word conservative what it means? It means to conserve. You know what I'm saying? They're not just conservative for a reason. You can see all the laws and all the things they're trying to bring back to show you that they see is about conservatism, right? So, that's what they want to do. You know what I'm saying? They want to conserve and make sure that, everything, stay in the same capacity that it always stayed in. I kind of lost my point, but it don't make a difference.
Listen, hey, you cooking today. OG, you once said, our generation, we've learned that ABCs. Your generation, y'all actually learned the XYZs. Right. How do we start to learn the XYZs, and what does that mean for your generation?
Well, it's an old saying, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. There's only one way to learn, and that's to educate yourself. Study what was so you can know what is. History is best recorded, as the Honorable Elijah Muhammad says, to reward all studies. So, me going to college, and, I had to do a paper one time on an essay on Rockefeller. So I was reading and talk about Standard Oil, and I read the entire thing. And so I tried to get by just writing something slick, And the professor, he said, man, you need to, I want the history. He said, I'm gonna get you a C if you don't give me what I want. He said, I want the history of Rockefeller. And then I studied the history of Rockefeller, and studying the history of Rockefeller, I understood the history of this country, right? I understood the history of business. It took my mind to another level. So sometimes we got to go back in time, and we got to study what was in order to know what is. We got to study Malcolm. We got to study Martin Luther King. We got to study Democracy, Gabriel Prosser, Harriet Tubman, Frederick Douglass, Carter G. Woodson, all of the ancient brothers, Malcolm X, Huey Newton, H. Rap Brown, Fred Hampton. We got to go back and study those brothers. We got to understand what happened. And then once we study them brothers, we got to apply it to the times. We got to see what's going on. Because if you go listen to a Malcolm X speech, Malcolm X is going to be like, white supremacy. He's going to be like, the white man is standing on our back. You listen to any brother from the Nation of Islam message today, they saying practically the same thing. Dr. Clark Anderson, he said that in 1885, black folks comprised 1% or 2% of the wealth of this country and 50% of the prison population. In 2025, black folks represent 2% of the wealth of this country and 50% of the prison. That means we haven't studied, we haven't learned from history, and we always move on impulse, And it's sad, it's really sad that there's no black men in the household, and women are raising the children, so therefore they're raising the killers and the drug dealers, Women are raising the killers and the drug dealers. It's the reason why God gave a man an Adam apple, because when he sit your ass down, it's equivalent to a lion's roar. When a lion roars, it scares the shit out of the elephants and all the giraffes in the jungle, because that strength, that male dominance is what those children need. A woman cannot raise a child. She cannot raise a boy, because you have to be a man to raise a boy. And we see statistically that I'm correct, because 85% of the homes are single parenting. When I was a kid, we got beat with extension cords. We got beat with switches. Wasn't no switches. Wasn't no Uzis. Wasn't no 9mm. It was get your butt at the house at 9 o'clock. You know what I'm saying? I mean, get up by before 9 to go to school. You know, that was the only 9 that was going on back then. You know what I'm saying? Wasn't no AK. The only AK was mama spitting that AK out of her mouth. Boy, you know what I'm saying? And you know, we were taught to go to church. Even if we wasn't Christian, even if we didn't believe in God, we was made to go to church to a certain age. And, you know, we was taught to go to college. We were taught to go to school. You know, all that stuff ain't happening now because you don't have that male figure. How can you work and send your kids to a daycare and give your kids adequate rearing? How can you rear a child adequately if you ain't there to nurture that child? You see what I'm saying? And I think that that's one of the biggest problems with brothers. That's why they can't learn, you know, because, you know, young people are raising themselves. But, you know, fortunately, at the hip-hop fraternity, you know, what I've built has been so strong, we've been able to galvanize the young people because I hit them where it's relevant at. You know, they like music. You know, kids are going to the studio all day, so if we can get them in a facility, you know, like we do every Monday at the Ice Bar, 5456 Fayetteville Road, and we offer them free services, right? We give them mentorship. You know, we have speakers come in and speak every week. You know, we let them park for free. We let them perform free, give them free entry. You know, it's our poor man YMCA. It's a poor man's YMCA. But yet we stopping the violence because if they're in there performing, ain't no killing, right? And then if they see a man like me who's accomplished, you know, who hustle every day, get out there and get money and, you know, own several businesses and stuff like that, it give them something to look up to. You know, so a lot of young men call me, they say, Ken, man, I want to be just like you. I want to be a businessman. I don't want to be I want to be a pimp no more. I don't want to be a dope dealer no more. And we need more people like yourself and myself that's creating a positive image for the young men. And that's what we do at the Hip Hop Fraternity. You know, we got 22,000 members. If people don't believe me, they can go to hhfmedia.com. The members is right there, you know, no cap. You know, we form businesses. You know, we're teaching them financial literacy. And that's what they got to learn. You got to teach financial literacy because it takes finance to uplift a nation. You know, we can't brush our teeth without a toothbrush. You know, we can't go to the bathroom without toilet paper. You know, we can't survive without water and the basic necessities, you know, food, clothing, and shelter. So in order to get that, you got to either be gainfully employed or you got to be self-employed, right? So we teaching them financial literacy. We teaching them how to, you know, register their music, about ASCAP, BMI, the blockchain. We teach them about NFTs, NFCs. You know, we teaching them about cryptology, you know, cryptocurrency, because these are the things that they need to know. Web3, AI, you know. They talk about IT, you know, informational technology. Well, we doing DT, you know, digital technology. You know, we teach them how to, you know, work the data, how to do SEOs, search engine optimizations. You know, just giving them different game that they're going to need in order to segue into the fourth industrial revolution, which is the internet. You know, because the internet don't know if you're black or white. You put a good product up there, it's going to boom. You know, look at black media. You know what I'm saying? Look what y'all doing. You know, you couldn't do this 20 years ago. 20 years ago, you watch Fox News, you watch CNN, and that was a rap.com. Whatever they told you, that was the narrative. Now we could get the narrative from RZA, from Nori, from Pimpin Ken, from Goldie, that comes on these shows regularly, you know, and other shows throughout the nation, Drink Champs and Boss Talk and all the rest of them, you know, street life, real life street story. So we can get our own narrative. So all these things is part of the development of, you know, the so-called Negro nation, you know, the so-called black nation. We have to, first of all, practice unity. That's why I work so hard to pull the brothers together, you know. And then once we get unity, we need to practice financial literacy because, you know, our first 30 years can be legacy, but our next 30 years got to be dynasty. If we got to understand the roads that we take to get to that destiny is not going to be the ones that get us there. It's going to be our detours. So we got to be innovative. We got to be creative. We got to play chess and not checkers. We got to be vertical. We got to know what vertical integration is. We got to know what diversification is. We got to know how to diversify. We got to know how to set up multiple streams of income. And we got to know how to keep that money. You know, you can get money, but if you don't know what capital gains is, if you don't know how to evade certain laws, you know, they do it all the time. You know, you don't own anything. You control everything. See, we have companies, but we don't own the companies. We don't own nothing. We don't have no wealth. But the company has the wealth. So we don't want to pull that wealth out the money. We want to park that money in real estate, park that money in insurance company, park that money in credit building companies. That way we don't have to pay capital gains. And we can build wealth, and that's how you build wealth over a period of time. You know, we at the Hip Hop Fraternity, we got gift cards. So we able to do what Howard Schwartz did. We're going to be able to take those gift cards to the Hip Hop Fraternity and raise money. And then you ain't have to, what was it, FDIC, whatever it is, you don't have to be regulated by them. You know, Howard Schwartz, he acts as a bank, that's Starbucks. You know, he raised billions of dollars in money that he don't have to pay no interest on or nothing. And some people don't never use the cards. So we got to see what the system is doing. We got to look at what Blackstone and BlackRock is doing. You know, BlackRock have $11 trillion under asset management. So what we have to do, we have to figure out how can we manage the assets of our people. You know, how can we take that money and show them how to invest that money in different investments, you know, that will become lucrative in the long run. You know, so these are the basic things that we have to learn, you know, within our community. Because if we, right now, it's a projection that by the next 2 years, we would be a permanent underclass, meaning that we would be locked, sealed, boxed into poverty if we don't get our S together. So we have to get ourselves together. You look at the Jews, you know, their money bounced 12 times. The Arabs' money bounced 15 times. The Asian money bounced 10 or 15 times. I just left California. It's 32 banks in China and California. They got more banks in one city than we got collectively, right?
You said 32?
32 banks in China. So it's like you can just, everywhere you go is banks. So what they do is they bring their people over there and they invest in their money back into each other. You know, they live in one apartment and they eventually become wealthy. You know, I like what the Chinese is doing, you know, technology-wise, societal-wise, and we need to figure out how to mimic the Chinese or the brother Touré in Burkina Faso. You know, because we are the ones who control the minerals. The minerals is in our mouth. See, in Africa, the minerals is in the ground, but we are the main people that spit these lyrics, this hip hop lyrics. So it's gold and it's oil coming out of our mouth because it created 5 billionaires. You know the names, Puffy, Jay-Z, Dr. Dre, you know, the list goes on. And then untold amount of millionaires. So we understand that. How do we control that? So what we're doing at the Hip Hop Fraternity is that we're centralizing, you know, hip hop, meaning that we got our own magazine, we got our own radio, we got our own clothing line, we got our own award show. Thank God BET ain't here no more. It's just gonna make it better for us, you know. But we foreseen all this way back in the gap, but we didn't look at it that they were going to fall off. We looked at it like it's going to become more Europeanized, more anglicized. It's going to be more whitewash. You know, it's going to be more, you know, of a white thing than a black thing. BET is black entertainment. You know, so how you have black entertainment when you got, you know, Europeans controlling it? So what we said is let's control HHF awards. Let's control HHF magazine, the narrative. Let's have HHF films, so we don't have to go to Hollywood. We can create our own narratives. And that's how you're going to be able to do it. You got to come together as a collective and build an ecosystem that's synchronized, you know, that all is interconnected and work under one auspices.
Come on now, Pimpin Ken. What words of advice would you have for a young black man that's trying to reach his fullest potential?
Well, you know, first of all, man, you know, you got to have a belief.
Yeah.
You know, you got to believe in something. Once you, whatever the mind believes and can see, the mind can achieve. And then after you believe it, you got to have ambition. You know, you got to be ambitious. You got to be hungry. If I put you in the basement for 2 days and I don't feed you, and I put a steak and some macaroni, and some greens. It sound good, don't it?
Yeah.
I'm hungry right now.
Yeah.
So if you put all that there, what you gonna do? You're gonna be trying to break those chains. Well, the same way you feel about that food after being hungry for 2 days, how you got to feel about your dreams and goals. You got to work harder than everyone. See, life today is about who get there fast. You know, it's about fast because we live in a very, very, very fast environment. You know, I mean, it's 5 AI. You know, I think Elon just came out with some AI. Facebook, everybody's moving quick. And, you know, we have to move quicker than what we're moving. You know, there's no time for procrastination. So young men, procrastination is the graveyard of all success. Procrastination is the graveyard of all success. Trying to put something off tomorrow that you could do today is guaranteeing your demise. You know, so you got to act now. And it's another saying. In life, you get there either first or you number one. What made Michael Jordan so great was not that the greatest, was not that he was a better player than all other players. It was one simple thing. He was 3 seconds faster than all of the other players. So when they try to get him, he'd cross him. You can see him, they'd fly that way, 3 seconds. When he go up in the air, everybody jumping at him. All he needs is 3 seconds to release. You know what I'm saying? I mean, when he passed, it's 3 seconds. Magic Jordan, the same thing. Larry Bird. If you look at any person, Jordan, Mike Tyson, 3 seconds faster than his opponent. That's what gets you to greatness. You got to be 3 seconds faster than anybody else doing whatever it is that you're doing. You know, that means that you call that bank 3 seconds before your competitor called and they said, well, we can't do it, we just gave a loan, the $3 million. You know what I'm saying? So it's always 3 seconds, you know, and that's what I try to do. I try to be ahead of the curve. I try to be 3 seconds, you know, the game. As soon as AI came, I was on it. You know, as soon as Web3 came out, I was on it. As soon as NFTs came out, I was on it. You know, as soon as, you know, internet radio, I was on it. You know, WordPress, I was on it. You know, build your own social media sites, I was on it. You know, you just got to be 3 seconds. And then by the time people realize what you did, it's too late. You know, and those, the Mark Zuckerbergs, those your Bill Gates, you know, that's your Jeff Bezos. They just 3 seconds faster than everybody else. You know, Jack Ma over there in China. China, the entire country of China, they 3 seconds faster than the United States. Their GDP was 2% 50 years ago. Now their GDP is 17%. America's 23%. They said within the next 2 years, they'll be surpassing America. They, some of the countries over there were rural areas, meaning that it was uninhabited. You know what I'm saying? With no people there. And now they full-blown cities, you know, rival New York, 3 seconds. You know, Japan doing the same thing. Africa is blossoming. You know what I'm saying? They move. Everybody moving fast now. Only people slow is the African Americans. We too slow. You know what I'm saying? We wait for the world to catch up with us. The world already surpassed us. And if we don't realize that and we don't understand how to do business, you know what I'm saying? I mean, unfortunately, you know, our children is going to be an endangered species. And it's designed by that way because they're becoming an endangered species by nature. They're trying to nurture us into being it. They're trying to social engineer us into destruction. You know, because the black man penis, as Francis Cress Welsing said, it is the real weapon of mass destruction. Because if you allow 100 Africans to go in any area and amalgamate with them white women or with them Arabs or them Chinese, them babies are gonna come out looking like Barack Obama all day. Barack Obama. And that's what they scared of. That's why prison is a form of contraceptive. You know what I'm saying? I mean, AIDS was put in the black community to deter black men from being so promiscuous. We don't understand that. These are facts. These ain't something that Pimpin Ken is saying. These are facts. These are things that are going on real time because your penis is a weapon of mass destruction. They make everything, the bullet in the symbol of penis says Francis Cresswell. The Washington Monument is made in a shape of a penis, says Francis Cresswell. She gives the game. You need to study the ISIS paper. She break it down, you know. And that sister, man, may God bless her soul, she was the answer to the black man's revolution. You know, if we follow her and Dr. Naeem Akbar and Kwanzaa Kajufu, Dr. Ben Jacano, and Dr. Chancellor Williams, that's the answer to the black man's solution. They figured it out a long time ago, and they used the same game. That stuff you see Trump doing, that's white supremacy, man. You know, calling Africa shithole countries, treating the African dignitaries like they ain't nothing, lying, talking about they killing farmers live on in the press. You know, that's white supremacy, bro. You know what I'm saying? That shit is real. But the only way you combat that is to understand it and understand that it's a religion. As Tariq Nasheed always say, white supremacy is a religion. You know what I'm saying? I mean, if you understand that, then you can navigate. I was with one of my Jewish friends the other day, and we were talking, and I told him, I said, he said, what's your secret? I said, the same secret y'all got, diversification, vertical integration, brand integration. I said, we everywhere. I said, we in everything. We got y'all got Silicon Valley, we got our own social media site. I said, y'all got a lobby, we got a lobby too. I said, y'all got Hollywood? I said, we got our own TV network. We got our own film company. And I said, y'all got Wall Street? We got Black Wall Street, which is hip hop. You know, and he started laughing. He said, man, I never looked at it like that. He said, but that's brilliant. You know, and this dude, he's smart as hell. He's a nice little smart Jewish young man, very intelligent. But I was trying to tell him, I said, man, we trying to mimic what your people doing for our people. You know, we're trying to get our people in multiple streams of income. We're trying to get our people diversified, where they don't just go and get beauty shops and car washes and the stuff we've been doing for the last 100 years. You know, everybody got a car wash, everybody got a beauty shop, you know, everybody got a nail shop, you know, everybody got a beauty supply, everybody got a daycare, everybody got a home care. You know, nobody talking about purchasing skyscrapers. Nobody talking about buying banknotes. Do you know you could buy a banknote that's worth $1 million for $100,000? And that if you can find the person who the note belonged to and you work out a payment plan with them and they pay you consistently for 1 year, that you can go get $750,000 off that banknote? That's what those collection agencies do. Those are people that bought notes. You know, what you think the housing bubble was when the housing bubble was 2008 through the predatory loan? Those people went and bought those foreclosed homes for pennies. They bought them for pennies, right? And then they went and they sold them to the foreigners. So when they sold them to the foreigners, guess what they did? They kicked all the people out down where everybody lived. Everybody told me, I'm downtown, I live in Buckhead. I live in Midtown. But you don't have no equity. You're paying rent. Rent does not generate equity. You know, you done gave up your beautiful home. You done gave up the science of real estate. You know, because real estate is the realest shit. You know what I'm saying? You gave up the real estate. Now you're spending 8 years in an apartment or in a condo and you don't have no equity. You have no money that you can borrow against. You can't do a mortgage. You can't do a second mortgage. You can't borrow against the mortgage. So what we're doing backwards. But they're doing it purposely to us. You know what I'm saying? It's all strategy. So we got to wake up. We got to get back into buying property. Because property is the best way. Ask any rich person, you know, why they put their money in real estate or buy a house for $200,000, because they know it's going to appreciate, and they also know they can't be taxed on that money. You can't tax somebody on something that's parked. They park their money. Bill Gates just bought, what they say, 52,000 acres or something. All he did was put his money where it can't be touched. You know, it can't be taxed. So we got to learn these basic things, man, to get to the next level. You know, we got to understand credit. You know, I mean, people say, if you got $100 million, Ken, what you going to do with it? I'm a borrower against it. I'm going to go borrow. If I give me $100 million, I'm going to go borrow $60 million. That way, I can't pay taxes on money that I owe. I have to replace that money, but I can do other things with that money, and I can expand and expand and expand, and pay it off over a period of time, and then borrow it again. That's what they doing, bro. They doing simple stuff, and we sitting up here, talking about my stomach hurt. We talking about I'm hungry, and it's all the opportunities, and you can just listen on the internet. It ain't like if you dumb in 2025, you dumb because you want to be dumb. They tell you everything on IG, the internet. They give the game away for free all day. It's just that we're so comfortable with nothing, and we think, that what we going through is normal. It's really not normal. It's abnormal. We the only people that spend 98% of our money with another group of people. As soon as we get our money, we go straight to Lenox Mall. We bypass all the ghetto stores. We don't even stop in the community. You can see them. Check time, everybody at Lenox Mall. They at the other mall, the other fancy mall. But guess what? They spending 98% of their money with another ethnic group. Now, when they go to the ghetto and they say, girl, let's ride. And they go through Buckhead, they see those beautiful homes, they're just like, man, I wonder what they did to get these houses. Well, they living off 100% of their money and 98% of yours. You bought the house for them. You wonder how these Arabs live so good and these Chinese live so good, all these foreigners that's in the community, they have grocery stores, liquor stores, a gas station, and some of them own property. You wonder how they living good? Because they're taking all the money out the hood and not putting no money back in the hood. They're taking 98% of our money out the hood and going living in the suburbs. Some of them done bought whole communities. So we got to wake up, man. That's what I tell the young people. Wake up, man. Get the game. You know what I'm saying? Understand how this game is played. Play chess and not checker. Chess ain't nothing but controlling the center of the board. Whoever controls the center of the board win the game. Whenever I play, I always get the center. Because if I control the center, I can checkmate my opponent.
Come on, OG, bro. This was truly a phenomenal conversation. Very last question for you. To your point about that one young Jewish kid who came up to you, asked you, what's your secret? Why do you think white America is so obsessed with the black drug dealer and the pimp? What do you think it is about the pimp and the drug dealer that always attracts white America's curiosity? We see it in TV, film, in person, all of that.
Well, let's go beyond the pimp.
Yeah.
Let's go back to ancient times. Let's look at the pyramids, right? Mm-hmm. You look at Imhotep, the first step pyramids, and you look at how the pyramids was built. You look at how they wore a lot of gold and jewelry. Those were our ancestors. Those were our forefathers. We always wore gold. We always was flashy. We always pushed culture. They was obsessed with it so much that they took the Sphinx and they cut the Sphinx nose out, tried to make it, make people think that was European. They stole all of the artifacts and they took them over into Europe and Rome. Some of them is in the Vatican right now. Believe it or not, the Catholic Church has most of the artifacts from Egypt. And they rewrote history. A lot of the people in the Bible were of African descent. They always wanted to be us because you know why? They all came from us. When you look at Mary Leakey and Louis Leakey, when they did an expedition in search of the original man, they went to Kenya. And when they went to Kenya, they found fossils. Those fossils is bones that was 14 carbon dated. 14 carbon dated is when you measure the carbon over 2 million years old. It was a black woman. They call it Zinj. Zinj mean black and Anthropus mean man. And so what they did, they put it on the cover of Time magazine that the original man was a black man. You know what I'm saying? And, by them going into the Caucasus Mountains and going into the cold areas, like if you notice in the summer, you're dark, and in the winter, you get lighter. Just imagine somebody being in the winter for thousands of years. Their melanin is going to deplete. See, melanin is a powerful chemical because it creates motor skills and intellectual skills. It also, is formed, in the fetus, in the early part of the fetus, before the second trimester. So it creates skin color as well. So the more melanin you have, the more intelligent you are. The more melanin you have, the more athletic you are. They know this. But, I don't know if you ever heard of waterboarding. So waterboarding is a technique they use to intimidate people that they capture, And so that's just waterboarding. There's another thing called social engineer. You heard of that? Yes, sir. Well, social engineer, when you engineer somebody to think other than them true selves, you make them believe that they're something that they're really not. You make them think that they wasn't superior, that they didn't build the pyramids. You make them think that they weren't the first mathematicians, they weren't the first scholars, they weren't the first, all these great things. They try to erase Mansa Musa, who was the richest man to ever lived. You know what I'm saying? They try to, Kwame Nkrumah, from Ghana. They try to, Patrice Lumumba. They try to erase all these things and make you think that they didn't exist. Then they give you their culture, their religion. Then they alter the religion. You know what I'm saying? And they tell you that Cain and Ham were black. And that Noah's sons were cursed because they looked at Noah being naked. All this bull crap, Then you read the Bible, in one part you see the word shake and you see the word spear. Then you find out that Shakespeare wrote the King James Version of the Bible. So all of these things are true things that happen. I'm gonna tell you something, man, that I found out when I was about 21. So I was reading, studying was Jesus a black man, and that was one of my essays. So I came across this Justinian coin, a black face of Jesus. I found some old literature of Mary and Jesus, the Black Madonna. And I found out that the Catholic Church have a statue of the Black Madonna of a black Jesus and a black Mary. I read the Bible and it says that his hair was like lamb wool, and his feet was like brass burnt in the oven. So lamb wool remind me of dreads, and anything burnt in the oven is going to automatically come out black. So, I was studying all this and I was trying to get to the root, who was Jesus. Then I came across this other paper called the Ryland Papers. Ryland is a museum in Berlin, but the owner of the museum was Ryland. But the paper's original name was called the Papyrus Papers. Papyrus Papers are the original transcripts that the New Testament was written on. And the papyrus only grows in Egypt. And I read that Jesus fled to Egypt, and when he got to Egypt, he was able to hide. How can you hide if you're European? If he's the depiction that Leonardo da Vinci gave us, or Michelangelo in the Sistine Chapel. When he painted the Sistine Chapel for the Vatican in Rome, he painted Jesus as a European. So that doesn't correlate. So I said, if all this was going on and they were complicit in this, I said, what else was they complicit in? Then I get into Martin Luther King. I see you got a picture of Martin Luther King out there. So Martin Luther King, right? I love Martin Luther King. I grew up on Martin Luther King. But then I think about all the other stuff that happened. And then I say, why is there a Martin Luther King in every hood? Why is Martin Luther King sitting on a statue like this in Washington, D.C., everybody else on horses and got their hand up? I said, why do they talk so glorious about Martin Luther King in the history books? Then I thought about it. And I thought about my research and my studies. I said, they killed him. The backstory of Martin Luther King is that a white man killed him. That is white supremacy. And then I said, okay, well, that's a coincidence. I said, let me study Black Wall Street. So I studied Tulsa, Oklahoma. I studied how rich and how prosperous those brothers and sisters was. And I said, they keep telling me about Tulsa, Oklahoma. So I'm already suspicious about Martin Luther King. So I'm saying, why do they keep telling me about Tulsa? They killed 600 black folks. That's what white supremacy is, bro. They will make you think that they praising you, but when you get into the backstory, your mind is a hell of a thing, brother. Your mind will pick that up. Like, I better stay in check. I better not do what Malcolm X do, because I don't want to end up with Martin Luther King did. I don't want to end up dead. We can't start no Black Wall Street. You see what the angry mob did to what they did in Tulsa. This is white supremacy. This is where we got to get smart at. We got to understand the tricks of the enemy. You know, we got to understand that we are the original people. We are the original kings. You know what I'm saying? King Solomon was a black man. You know, when the Masons talk about, you know, he had the master grip, they talking about hiring Abiff, a black man. You know what I'm saying? You know, when you talk about, they don't never tell you about John Horse. You know who John Horse was?
Yes, sir.
You know who Denmark Vesey was?
Yes, sir.
You know who Gabriel Prosser was? But they don't never tell you about John Horse, but they tell you about Nat Turner because they hung him. They tell you about Prosser, Gabriel Prosser because they hung him. But John Horse is the only black man in the history of revolts in this country that killed hundreds of white people and ain't never got caught. And I believe it was an Indian brother. I can't think his name was Geronimo or something. Everybody was lying, talking about Harry Tubman sending them to Canada. They weren't going to Canada. They was going to Florida. That's where you get the Seminole Indians from. So they was going to Florida, and how did they do it? They would take chicken with them. And if you ever go to Burkina Faso, you know what they do? They sit on the alligators. They train the alligators. Go look at it. Anybody watching this, go look at Burkina Faso's and their relationship, why they don't kill alligators. They put their hands in the alligator mouth and the alligator on them. But that's the same thing they was doing going down there. They would give the alligators chicken, and the chicken would run, and they would go through the swamp. The white man didn't go through there because he was scared of the alligators. That's why Trump now got alligator prison right now. It's all making sense. But you think about the alligators, right? You think about the enemy, the Indians. How were they able to build a whole community down there? Right now, what we call Miami, with the Seminole Indians. You know, Hard Rock. Just go to Hard Rock Casino. You'll see them. You know, how was they able to do that? Because they understood, you know, how to connect with nature. You know what I'm saying? That's how you got Jacksonville, Florida. You think Jacksonville, Florida just popped up? No, Jackson was sent down there by the president and said, hey, look, find out what's going on, because we heard that our slaves are hiding out there somewhere in Florida. And that's what Florida pretty much in. That's how you get Jacksonville, Florida. You know, but a lot of people don't understand that. So I could talk all day, man, you know, but I wanted to say this stuff to your people because I want them to understand the in-depthness of white supremacy and the in-depthness of being socially engineered. And if they want to really get out of this quagmire, you know, they got to really understand, you know, the works and the tactics of the enemy. And when you do that by reading Francis Cresswell's in the ISIS paper, Dr. Naeem Akbar, the psychological image and change of slavery, Chancellor William, Dr. Ben, Henry Clark, and Kawanza Kajufu. You know what I'm saying? I mean, these books will help brothers get out of their situation. Then next time I give them some more advanced books to read that'll help them really, you know, become master builders. You know, that's why I was able to build the hip hop fraternity and create 22,000 members in 5 years. I got, you know, brother Michael Hopper. He's one of the lawyers. He's the same brother that worked with Ben Crump. He's one of the lawyers for the hip hop fraternity, and also attorney Tiffany Simmons, Simmons Law, the plug lawyer. She's also on my board. You know, I got so many intelligent people, you know, educated brothers and sisters, because I tell them, I say, look, y'all run this. I want to be a ghost in 2 years. I don't want nobody even know that I had nothing to do with hip hop fraternity. I want y'all to build it. I want y'all to create generational wealth. I want y'all to help bring our people back together, because y'all the erudites, y'all the intellectuals. And that's what we never had. We never had the streets and executive suites come together. Civil rights movements was full of PhDs and Christians and highly educated people. With the hip hop fraternity got the hood. We got Crips, Bloods, GD Vice Lords, lawyers, PhDs, economists, engineers, and we bring them together all under auspices that we love hip hop and we all of the same hue. We got Europeans in there because they can be utilized as well. But, we want people like myself who got the streets. I go in any block, any hood, I'm straight. You know what I'm saying? So if I could go there, I could talk to these brothers and I could pull them in. Then we got these brothers and sisters that got all these letters behind their name, all this education. They can go in there, they could deal with corporate America. And they can make sure that we get equitable deals and make sure that, we understand the laws and rules and regulations. And we're not just looking at the contract on the compensation side, but we're also looking at the obligation side. And what is the escalation clause? What is the de-escalation clause? These are the main things that we have to do, And the reason why I want to be a ghost is because if I can become a ghost, then that means everybody know what to do, right?
That's right.
So that means I taught everybody well, and that's what I want to do. I want to, build it and just let the young people control hip-hop fraternity. I want to give brothers deals. I want to give brothers the same money that, the Europeans give them, $250,000 to get their records played and get it out there in circulation. We want to make sure that they own all their publishing, make sure they own their masters, make sure, all that stuff is relevant. And the people, as we get millions and millions of people to come to hhfmedia.com, they will create their own customer base. Your own brothers and sisters will buy your music. Y'all be buying from each other. Then y'all ain't got to worry about welfare. You ain't got to worry about the system. Because in a minute, everything for to be cryptocurrency anyway. So, America ain't going to control nothing. It's going to be crypto. You know what I'm saying? And even Cash App got crypto, Bitcoin on it. So we know where the future is going. So if that's a good thing, because now we can sell to people all over the world. Even with the Chinese, if they're doing yuan, they can still convert that over to crypto. You know what I'm saying? So it's going to be a real great time moving forward for the African American community if they listen to what we're doing over here at the Hip Hop Fraternity. I'm trying to teach these brothers how to be leaders, how to be focused. You said, what they got to do, and that's be focused, be smart, be intelligent. And like I said, wherever there's the least appearance of evil, expect the greatest amount of danger. There's no real friends in life. You know what I'm saying? Most people, they shake your hand, and the other hand, they got a knife. Most people, they only loyal to you as long as you're winning. The minute things start falling off, that disloyalty, come in. Your family, they would mean good, but the minute things start going bad, they go bad. So you can't really, concentrate and focus on what people are going to do for you. You got to concentrate on what you're going to do for yourself. Once you get a master plan, you strategize, you execute it, and then any young man will be successful. And like I said, you got to be 3 seconds faster than the next man.
Come on now. Pimpin Ken, legendary conversation. On the way out, where can everybody keep up with you, follow you, Hip Hop Fraternity, all that good stuff?
Well, they can go to hhfmedia.com. We have our own social media. You can sign up. You can create your own profile. You can correspond. You can DM. You can do everything you can do on Facebook and on other things. If you want to buy my books, you can go to hhfmedia.com, hit the link books at the top, and then you'll see my books right there. If you want to follow me on Instagram, you can follow me at realpimpken_. People say, why you still call yourself Pimpin Ken? Because I'm Pimpin Ken. I'm pimping me now. So I might not be pimping, but I'm damn sure pimping myself. So I still call myself Pimpin Ken for that reason. And, it's all fun. And also, I guess that's it when it comes. I guess I'm on Snapchat, but I've been on HHF Media. We got our own social media. I've been having fun kicking with everybody on there now. Like we've been gaining members. Like we gained 1,000 members in the last week. Wow. They joining crazy. I think, once we put this bag behind everything, they want to get the HHF jackets. They can also get up there. We got the platinum membership cards. You want to be a platinum member, that means you can come to all our events free. You can come to all our concerts, all our award shows. You get VIP everywhere we doing concerts and shows, because we do Monday night, that's free. But when we do concerts and events, you know, we got to make money because we paying for the talent. But if you're a platinum member, it's $80 a month, but we do it in one payment, $1,000 for the year. You know, that'll get you all access. You know, we got the jackets. The jackets go for $3.99. They Letterman jackets. You know, Ice-T got one. Floyd Mayweather got one. Snoop Dogg got a jacket. The Breakfast Club, you see, every now got one. So everybody wearing the jackets, all the celebrities wearing them. You know, if they want to give it to the program, you know, they need to get on over to hhfmedia.com and get their jackets. If they want to, you know, you want to meet a nice lady, you know, 'cause I know some of you guys like to meet. We got a lot of ladies over there at the hhfmedia.com. You know, if you want to meet a producer, an A&R, you know, you want to talk to Ice-T, you know, Yuck Mouth, Rick Ross, Freeway. They all at the hhfmedia.com. And more celebrities is joining every day. It's probably more. You know, so many people, I ain't be able to check all them people, but, you know, they there.
Man.
And y'all need to go over there too. And
Gotta
join.
pull up. Got to, man. Look, right up the street. So, hey, I ain't got no excuses, man. But, man, OG, I appreciate you greatly. You know, always sharing us knowledge, information to our generation, which is needed. So, man, I thank you for that. Because, look, you could keep it all to yourself if you felt like it. So, man, we appreciate you.
Yeah, I know you wanted more. But see, I'm going to tell you about Soft White Underbelly, right? It was a lot of people, you know, that went on there, and I think they was doing it a disservice. They didn't give no real game. So I wanted to let brothers know how deep the game was. When I say that, you know, we gave women motivation, inspiration, that I would buy the cars, and then once I would buy the car, I would sell the car back to the woman. You know, it wasn't that I was just pimping on her, taking her money. When she came out the game, she had a car. I would buy her mink coats. You know, of course, I would buy the coats probably for $1,000, $2,000 street, sell it to her for $20,000. You know, that's American way. You can, you know, but what I was doing was I was giving them motivation, and they would stick around longer, you know, and they bought their cars, their house, and stuff like that. So I just wanted to make that point to let people know that pimping is a non-contact sport. It ain't all violent like people think it is, you know. Everybody think it's all about the bitch and all that. No, it's like women is doing what they doing anyway. I just show them, you know, how to have something out the situation. You know, do it, but come up. You know, I'm gonna take your money regardless if you give it to me, but I don't want to take your money and don't leave you with nothing. And then most of them that left me, they still had that knowledge. So I'm showing them how to get $2,000, $3,000 a day. They leave me, you know. I had some girls, man, that left me, man. They had mansions and everything because they had game on how to get $2,000, $3,000 without selling pussy. They never sold pussy. I taught them how to sell pussyality. It's a different, you know, the personality, you know, a pussy mentality. You know what I'm saying? You ain't selling your body. You know what I'm saying? You don't have to give your body to a man. You can talk a man out of anything if his thing is aroused. If he hard, when he hard, he'll do anything. And so I taught them that, you know, and a lot of women, you know, they thank me to this day. They said, you know, I didn't have to give my body up because of you, Ken. So that's what I was teaching them, you know what I'm saying? And you know, a lot of young dudes didn't understand that, you know. And of course, when I was in the game, I would never give it to them. You know, just like I said, you know, I sent them in the strip club. I sent them in Magic City. They never danced or never did none of that stuff. They'd take them in the VIP room, get them drunk, and then order some chicken, then put the tip on there, $1,000, you know. And we did that for years. Made hundreds and hundreds of thousands. People wanted to buy Rolls Royces and all that stuff back in the day because I was thinking ahead of the game. But that same knowledge that I was using back then, now I use for good. I learned how to do business. I got Boosie a deal with Simon Schuster. I got Rick Ross a movie deal with me. I got Ice-T a movie deal and a book deal. Corey Wise from Central Park, you know, with one of the biggest companies in the world. So you just got to segue and pivot to other levels, you know. But I was just showing them the intelligence side of the game, you know. That's what I was telling them, you know. So that's pretty much what I was talking to them about, because I felt that there was a lot of people from that lifestyle be watching that, you know. But a lot of times, you know, I expect for me and you to have a more, gentleman, next level conversation. So,
was, yeah.
I always be prepared,
Yeah.
to give you some wisdom, but that was just a rare situation. I probably never do that again.
Hey, look, you already did it once, man, but this one right here,
Yeah.
hey, you killed this, Pimpin Ken. And,
Thanks.
all the subscribers, I already know everybody, man, they will be showing you love, but I appreciate you greatly, brother. Y'all make sure to follow, like, comment, and subscribe. Follow Pimpin Ken, Hip Hop Fraternity. Join that. Follow that as well, man. You already know where to find them. Y'all can find that in the description below. Once again, I'm blessed to be your host, Caleb Smith. Until next time, family. Peace.
Peace.